As a business owner, I want you to think about your business having a spectrum of values. At one end of the spectrum, we'll call it the highest investment value or strategic value. This is if you went out to market in a competitive process and you were able to get full price discovery and you ran the price all the way up to the very top. This is the highest value that this business would transact for. So we'll call this strategic value or investment value. At the other end of the spectrum, we might have bankruptcy or liquidation value, but somewhere kind of in the middle, we have the hypothetical construct of fair market value. And there's a million different value points in between. And I'd like to think about value as whenever I go to a process, I take one company and I might have 30 different acquirers. Every one of these acquirers is telling themselves a different story. They're telling themselves stories about your business, about your capabilities, about the resources. They're telling themselves a story about the cash flow of that business and what it will generate going forward. They're telling themselves a story of how acquiring those capabilities, whether it be revenue, technology, so on and so forth, can help bolster their bottom line. And they're telling themselves a story about market conditions. Are they buying at the high end of the market? Are they buying at the low end of the market? Where are we in the greater financial environment? Every one of these buyers is telling themselves a story. As a seller, you can't look at your business as having a going rate. What's a sales multiple or what's a standard EBITDA multiple for my business? You have to think probabilistic in the fact that you've got a wide spectrum of buyers, each telling themselves their own story to determine the value of the business. Now, of course, the question is, how do you get them to pay it, right? And so I think one of the issues that a lot of sellers have is when they start to think about the fact that their business may have an objective value or there's a going rate for their business, they start to think that, hey, my business is worth $25 million. It's kind of the objective price for it, and any acquirer that's interested should realistically pay that. But the reality is, again, every buyer is telling themselves a different story. Every buyer has a different capacity to pay, right? So again, pretend for a second your business is roughly worth $25 million on the open market. Your cousin who works at the deli down the street, he's not somebody who's going to be able to buy your business. He might have the interest and the desire, but he doesn't have the capacity to pay. Other acquirers, you got publicly traded companies, you got private equity firms, they clearly have the capacity to pay, but now you've got to force them to pay the price. And you do that through a competitive process. What I hear most often from our clients here at Potomac is the extreme value in working with us years in advance of a sale. Not only do we help establish a fair market value in a range of investment values for the client, but we provide them a roadmap of everything they could possibly do in order to increase value and decrease risk in anticipation of a future sale. If you've got a sale on the horizon, whether it be 6 months from now or 5 years from now, we'd love to have a chat with you. Please use the contact form below in the description to reach out to us today. And feel free to share this masterclass series with somebody who you think might benefit from it. Again, I'm Paul Giannamore. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you on the next one.